Hello and welcome to Hekate today, coming to you on the night of the Deipnon with your host Jade Alcasty. I know it's been a while since I last recorded an episode, and for this I do apologise, and I don't. As I've mentioned before, I am a witch living with a disability, and sometimes when major life events happen, this can leave me with very little energy to do much else. During these times, I have to prioritise somewhat in terms of my witchcraft. My first priority has to be myself and my personal workings. My priority after that has to be my coven, the Torchlight Circle, which I will discuss a little bit more in future episodes. I also have my blog, Strophilus Rising, and that is a very important project to me. Writing is my first love, so to speak, in terms of artistic mediums. And I also help moderate the Witch's Realm, which is founded by an amazing Hecatean witch and author, Cindy Brannan. If you haven't already, I would very much recommend you check out her blog on Patheos, Keeping Her Keys. Or you can also pick up a copy of her book, also called Keeping Her Keys, Hecate's Modern Witchcraft. If you are new to Hecatean witchcraft, or even if you're just curious about it, or maybe you've been practicing for some time but have hit a wall, I would very much recommend picking up a copy of this book, which is written in the form of a course intended to be studied over the traditional period of a year and a day. And I very much feel that for any witch who is interested in working with Hekate or wants to deepen their relationship with Hekate, that book is a highly recommended route to doing that. If you are interested in the work of Cindy Brannan, or perhaps are studying Keeping Her Keys, the book, as a solo practitioner, you can also apply to join the Witch's Realm on Facebook. And in association with Keeping Her Keys, there is a Facebook study group for people who are following along with the Keeping Her Keys course on their own. So as you can see, witchcraft is a thread that runs through every area of my life, and I spend a lot of time on it and engaging with it. And in addition to that, because I believe in balance, we sadly cannot spend all our time with our heads in the other realm. I have a fair amount of life stuff going on too. There is a family member I have some caring responsibility for, and there is my Etsy business, Bath Book and Candle, through which I sell my crafts and witchy wares. I have 2 dogs and 2 cats, one of whom is quite vocal and you may sometimes hear in the background of these recordings. And I'm an artist, I am a tarot reader. I have a lovely fiancé who is currently living in a different county to me. For you Americans, that is not really like the next state over, that is probably more like the next town over. And generally a full and busy and fulfilling life. So I've come to the realization that I can't necessarily commit to recording every month, but I will endeavour to record as often and as regularly as possible. So tonight I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about Hecate's symbols and signs and how she communicates, and tell you a little bit more of my story in the process. And to do this, I'm going to start with tonight and work backwards. This is because I was generally feeling pretty exhausted today. This is something that happens to me fairly regularly. Part of my illness involves having quite severe fatigue attacks after any periods of exertion, which may mean that for several days on end I'm pretty useless and not able to do a whole lot. So I was resting off the tail end of this current fatigue attack, feeling slightly guilty that I wasn't really engaging with the Deipnon, but with no real plans to change that. And I opened my window because it's pretty hot here in the UK at the moment, probably not nearly as hot as it is in the USA, but by our standards, anything above 15 degrees Celsius is absolutely sweltering. And I hear an absolute ruckus of crows outside my window. Now, I tend to lean on the skeptical side in terms of signs and symbols. Sometimes a feather in your path is just a feather in your path. Sometimes a particular animal crossing your path that you might see on a walk may not be something you see very commonly, but they have to exist somewhere, right? One thing I see a lot of is witches finding dead things and wondering if it's some form of sign or omen. And I tend to think maybe, particularly if that particular dead thing is something that has meaning for you personally, or is very associated with a spirit or deity you work closely with. Maybe it's a sign or symbol if you've asked for a sign or symbol, but animals have to die somewhere, right? So from time to time a person is going to find a dead thing while they're out wandering, and there's no deep meaning to it. So hearing these crows on the Deipnon, it did kind of make my conscience prick a little bit. You know, I felt something, but me being kind of a skeptic in some ways and possibly a little bit lazy, I sort of dismissed it and was like, no, it's fine, I'm fine. So the evening wears on and I'm helping my flatmate cooking, and for no apparent reason, suddenly I hear a chorus of all the neighbourhood's dogs barking to each other or together. They're properly going off. There's a few buildings within hearing distance of us where dogs reside, and one of my dogs started answering them, and it's the loudest I've ever heard him bark. It's really strange. Obviously, I'm used to local dogs that I can hear from where I live going off at the postman, or because they've heard a strange noise or a firework has gone off. But this was something else, and this being the second time something had happened this evening, with hounds being very strongly associated with Hekate, and this made me think, okay, it's Hekate's night, and I am a devotee of Hekate, and this may be the second or third Deipnon where I haven't really made a huge effort, and maybe it is time to return to that regular practice and make some effort. I think that part of my inertia over the Deipnon over the last few months has obviously partly been tiredness and exhaustion, and sometimes you're just not at your witchy best, and that is okay. Take a break. But also it's been not really knowing what to do. It was my practice to take a walk to the local crossroads and make offerings, but there's been a spate of very violent after dark incidents in this area, and I no longer feel safe doing that, sadly. And during the day, because I live in a town, there's very little places where you could really discreetly go and make offerings when people are around, and I don't feel particularly comfortable doing that during the day. And also her Daemon, it's the night of the dark moon. It's the night when her and her horde of her restless dead are said to wander, and celebrating this in the sunlight during the day just doesn't feel particularly, not incorrect, because I don't believe there is a correct or incorrect way as such to practice the Daemon or making offerings to Hekate, as long as you're not doing something against the value system that she stands for. But the Daemon during the daytime, it just doesn't do it for me. So since I've had to make the decision not to take risks going out in an area that increasingly doesn't appear to be safe for a lone woman after dark, which I deeply resent, but here we are. I've been a little bit stuck in re-establishing a regular Daemon practice, and I think that's very much on me. For me, being a witch is about creativity and manifestation and doing what you can with what you have. Witchcraft, at least in the traditional rural peasant sense, is born of not having many resources and needing to find a way to make up for the deficit of material wealth and maybe access to healthcare, access to the sort of assistance that so many of us take for granted in modern day life. One wouldn't have been able to order the correct colour candles off Amazon and buy the fancy altarware. One might have to respond to an emergency, only the resources that were available. And from that need was born the craft of the wise, the craft of witches, who called upon the power of the powerless, who called upon the resources of the resourceless. So, if I don't live in an area where I can be traipsing off to the crossroads in the dark of night, I guess I need to make myself a crossroads, either symbolically on my altar or some other way. So that's something I need to think about. But coming back to signs and symbols, that dogs going nuts on the night of the dark moon is something that I hear reported quite a lot among Hecatean witches. In fact, I've heard from a few people recently where they've heard dogs barking or howling in an area where there shouldn't really be that many dogs, rural places without neighbours and strange things like that. And this often happens when storms are brewing, like not metaphorical storms, actual physical storms are brewing. The wind's up and, witches telling me they can feel the storm coming, they can hear the dogs howling, and they feel deep within themselves that is a time when Hekate is walking. She is out, she is calling, and witches may take this as a nudge to grab their tarot cards and see what they can see that way, or take advantage of that energy, or maybe it sort of refocuses them, makes them think, what do I need to be aware of right now? Why am I hearing her house? So that's a very common way that Hekate seems to communicate. Other ways, and this one I've also experienced, are dreams, visions, and sightings of spiders. Now, I understand this may fill some of you with utter horror. It fills me with horror. I don't want to be, as much as I respect them, they're very powerful, beautiful, mysterious creatures. I don't want one anywhere near me. So I wasn't particularly thrilled on the day near to the time when I was starting to become aware of Hekate. And this is before I knew anything about what colours were traditionally associated with her. Red black and white as strong themes for a lot of Hecatean witches, with black representing the underworld, red representing the middle world, and white representing the heavens, which are the three realms that Hekate has dominion over. And Hekate is often depicted as a three-formed goddess. Her crossroads are often three-way crossroads. So Hekate and threes and those particular colours all are very commonly associated. So I had fallen asleep. It was the middle of the afternoon and my phone rang, and I picked up my phone and I was speaking to my dad, and I watched the most massive red-kneed tarantula crawl up my wardrobe and disappear over the top. It took hours for my flatmate to convince me that this must have been a post-sleep hallucination, my eyes just malfunctioning because I had just woken up, and it took ages for me to stop, checking everywhere for it and become comfortable again in my room. And it wasn't long after that I found out that a lot of people do have encounters with spiders when Hekate is calling them, and those colours are associated with her. And I think that's one of the strongest tangible early nudges I had from Hekate, sort of in the beginning when she was engaging me and calling me to work with her. Another more subtle sign people report a lot is chills, like the feeling of chills. When you hear a certain piece of music and you get the shivers, or it feels like the hair on your arm stands on end. When asked, how does Hekate's energy feel to you, that is the most common answer I've had to that question. And that is certainly something I've experienced a lot, usually at points when things seem to mysteriously come together, when me and a friend of mine hatched the idea for an accessible techno coven. We were talking, and strangely just constantly having the same thoughts at the same time. This is not someone I knew very well at that point, and chills was an experience I just kept getting, and I knew that we had to make that idea happen. We had to start it, and we did, and it's been a wonderful experience. And other points in my life where it's just felt like, I think in Hungarian terms it would be called synchronicity, those times where things just happen and slot into place in a way that's almost uncannily right, and you have those moments. This is what I should be doing. I'm on the right path, I'm in the right place, I'm doing the right thing, I'm exactly where I need to be, and everything is coming together to confirm that for you. That synchronicity, those are the points when I get those chills, and I feel like that feeling I've come to associate with the hand of Hekate in my life and her guidance. No discussion of Hekate's signs and symbols would be complete without mentioning keys. When people are called to work with Hekate or start building a relationship with her, they almost invariably start finding random keys everywhere. Hekate is Pantas Cosmokleiduchos, keeper of the keys of the universe. She stands before the gate, she unlocks the gate. The key is one of her most fundamental symbols, and this is actually one of the symbols that me and my Technocoven wear to connect to each other, as our patron deity is Hekate. And yes, finding random keys in your house that you have no idea where they came from, old keys in charity shops, keys when you're walking. I was walking in my local woodlands, which I've come to build a very deep relationship with, but for one of the first times, and I came across a post that spontaneously people had decided, this is where I'm going to hang, this is where we're going to hang keys when we find someone's keys in the woods that they've dropped. And it's covered with keys, rusted keys, old keys, notes from people who have found their keys there and wanting to thank the person who left them there. And this post is fascinating to me because it's like this ability for people to communicate and decide on a common purpose and designate a place as the key place without ever meeting each other. Probably none of the people who have decided to do this have ever really come across each other. They may not know each other, but somehow they've managed to communicate with each other in a subtle way and designate this post as the post where if you find someone's keys that they've dropped while walking, that's where you're going to put the keys. And also people who pass it a lot know if they lose their keys while walking, if someone's found them, they will probably hang them there. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. And I'm finding it, it was a meaningful experience for me. I sometimes suffer from a level of disconnectedness from other people. I'm very much in my own head. I like spending time alone. I like walking alone. I like getting on with my art alone. I can spend hours reading. I can almost forget that other people exist quite happily, but it reminded me that there's always this web of interconnectedness, not just with other human beings, but with all living beings, including our earth that we walk on. And that was quite profound for me. So yeah, keys, experiences involving keys, big one. And you will often find when witches who work with Hekate are questioning, is she still with them? Does she still want them? Hekate is not a mumsy, nurturing goddess. She does nurture, she does teach, she does guide, she does lead, but she does so from a distance. It's been theorized her name actually means the distant one. She's up ahead and she's going to let you do your own thing and make your own mistakes, and she'll guide you, but the responsibility is on you. And sometimes you can't feel her that close. She's not a helicopter parent. She's not, she's not your earth mother who's wrapping around you and making sure that you've got your hat and coat when you're going out the door. No, she's going to let you damn well choose what to wear out and live with those consequences. So sometimes, yeah, she can feel like she is not there. And she is there, but she's teaching you by her very distance. She's saying to you, this is the point when you're ready to walk alone through this stage of your life, and I'm not going to smother you or suffocate you by dictating your every move or constantly nudging you, do this, do that. And I love that about her. But it can lead to people wondering if she's still there, and it's my experience that Hekate is an incredibly faithful patron. If you don't abandon her, she will not abandon you. But crises of faith happen in every spirituality and religion, and often around these times is when you will start finding keys again, as a subtle reminder that she has not forsaken you. I've mentioned dogs in terms of hearing them howling, but again, another sign that people often find is random dogs turning up during their outdoor rituals, especially black dogs. And someone recently told me white dogs, the great white bitch, is associated with Hekate, which is not something I've been able to verify. I'm not sure what the source of this is, but that's something I've heard. But black dogs, definitely, which is even been called Melania a black dog herself, so that's one of her epithets. So yeah, if you have recently been asking for guidance, or you're have been undertaking some kind of outdoor ritual and someone's black Labrador runs up to you, I would definitely take that as a sign that she has heard you, because that is quite a common occurrence. So all these things can show up in dreams as much as they can show up in real life, and I don't think dreams are meaningless. I'm not sure if I believe so much in prophetic dreams, although my maternal grandmother did appear to have some kind of prophetic dreaming power that was associated very much with our family. Both her parents, after they passed on, if someone was going to get seriously ill within our family, she would dream of her father. And if it was going to be okay, a few nights later she would dream of her mother. And if she didn't dream of her mother a few nights later, then the outcome of said illness was likely to be death. So, I mean, I found this really interesting as a teenager, but I've never myself experienced anything like that. I've definitely experienced that thing where something is happening and you think, I know I've dreamed about this happening. I've also had just really weird, useless flashes. Like a while back, I was having a nap and I dreamed of chocolate fingers. I don't know if you have these outside of the UK, if you're listening from outside the UK, but they're like a biscuit covered in chocolate in the shape of a finger. Not like a detailed finger with a nail and stuff, it's just like a baton. And I dreamed of them. I don't eat them. Like, I don't think I've had them since I was a kid. I had no reason to think about them. And I woke up and I saw my mum had posted on Facebook about a chocolate finger advertisement she'd seen that made her angry, and also I had a missed call from her. And when I called her back, it turns out she was trying to contact me to ask me what I thought of this advert. I don't know why she does this, because I don't have a TV, so I never see adverts, but yeah, useless stuff like that maybe I've experienced. But what I do know, or what I do deeply believe at least, is that dreams are one way our unconscious communicates with our conscious. So while some dreams may be just sort of trash rehashings of the day or our anxieties, trying to make sense of things, occasionally something really meaningful will stick out in those dreams. So, you know, if these symbols appear to you in your dreams, spiders, dogs, keys, colours, black, white and red, don't necessarily dismiss that as less valid than seeing a physical symbol or sign. In some ways, it may be more valid. People have to drop their keys somewhere, and lots of people own dogs, right? But the messages that your intuition and your unconscious send to your actual consciousness while dreaming often speak of very fundamental truths about ourselves. Torches are another, often associated with Hekate. So lights in the distance where there shouldn't necessarily be lights can sometimes be signals from her that she's leading you. Sometimes images, depictions of torches, torch-like lights and shadows in photographs you've taken where there was not any when you took the photo that you could see, may also be signs or communication from Hekate. Snakes is another one, not one that I've particularly experienced myself in her communications with me, though I do really love the stone Snake Dragon Jade. Maybe because it has my name in it, but it feels so good to me. I love that stone. It's one of the less common ones you see in crystal shops, etc. So if you do get a chance to look that up or get hold of a piece, it's a very, very unique energy, and I would recommend spending some time with it, seeing how you feel about it. Dragons is another one. I've done some magic with dragons before. There was a situation where I needed to get something done and everything just felt stuck. I wasn't getting cooperation from the other person who needed to be helping me with this. I wasn't, when something's just such a big task, it's just utterly overwhelming, so you procrastinate, but it's still on your mind, and just the fact that it still needs to be done is just draining your energy. It's one of those situations. So I composed a big ritual around a dragon statue I have, and I made some dragon incense, and that's not just dragon's blood. Like, dragon incense is a recipe I created using dragon's blood and a lot of other herbs associated with dragons, and basically set up this intention altar overseen by this dragon to sort of fire up my energy and just brute force away the blockages. And I don't know, a week later my task was done. It was sorted. It was amazing. A lot of hard work. Dragons ain't going to do the heavy lifting for you, but hard work that felt manageable and doable, and really didn't seem to be as much as I thought it was going to be before I started. So yeah, dragons are associated with Hekate, and I've seen warnings about working with dragons in books, like, if you work with dragons, they're big, terrifying creatures that will take up a lot of room, be sure to dismiss them, and I think this may come a little bit from ceremonial magic, where there's a sense of danger associated with summoning large primal beings, but I've never had a problem working with them. I've never had random fires break out, I've never had issues. I find them a great energy to work with. If you do want to work with them, I would recommend first finding them lots of pretty shiny things. Build them a little treasure hoard for them to watch over. It'll keep their energy nice and focused. There's a little random witch tip for you there. There's horses, cows, all manner of herbs and plants, especially poisoned ones. So wolfsbane and mugwort, and I'm not going to go into an exhaustive list of plants associated with Hekate's garden here, but the main form of witchcraft that she taught in mythology is pharmakia. So what was considered an incredibly dangerous magic, even feared by the gods, working with the spirits of plants. So plantcraft and Hekate are very closely linked, and I may do an episode on this at some point, but I will probably do an episode on this with a guest who knows a little bit more about it than me, because pharmakia is not my strong point. There are absolutely loads of symbols associated with Hekate, so I've only really covered the most common ones and the ones that I've had the most personal experience with. But if you have a particular association with her that I haven't mentioned, then that's completely valid. If the language she uses to communicate with you is unique to you and speaks to your psyche, that's completely valid. Don't necessarily dismiss something that feels very much to you like a sign or symbol that you don't immediately think that's associated with Hekate, because her mythology is complex and spans various cultures and eras and times. There are also other deities that are very closely linked with her, which symbols may be associated with. There's definitely deities she's had her name sort of merged with. Hermes and Hekate is something that's turned up in ancient scripts, and Selena she's been associated with, goddess of the moon, and Artemis, many others. So something very much feels like a sign or symbol to you, and you think, wait, I haven't really heard of this being associated with Hekate. Definitely do some digging, because maybe it's just one of the less common ones. Maybe it's just a symbol that's meaningful for you, and she's using that to communicate with you. Don't dismiss a sign or symbol because that's not the main experience other people have had. You are a unique witch with a unique psyche and a unique relationship if you work with her, with Hekate. So I think that about wraps it up for this slightly spontaneous and less organised episode. I would like to close with a short Deipnon prayer of my own composition. Hail Hekate, who is the soul of the world, mother of all, and she who creates. Hail Hekate, who is the darkness of the night, gatherer of souls, she who destroys. I banish and destroy that which does not serve me. I birth and create that which my truest self desires. Pantos Cosmo Kleiduchos, keeper of the keys of the universe, may the gates open before me. Where your torchlight falls, so there may I tread, with courage, trust, strength and love. It is so. Thank you for listening. If you want to read more of my thoughts on Hekate and witchcraft, visit my blog, Strophilos Rising, at www.hekateswheel.home.blog. If you would like to support me and pick yourself up some witchy wares in the process, you can visit my Etsy shop, Bath Book and Candle, at www.etsy.com/UK/shop/Bath Book and Candle. Thank you for listening and have a blessed Deipnon.